This chart compares the Sikh populations of India and Canada alongside their actual political representation. Sikhs make up roughly 1.7. The answer has little to do with modern headlines. It is the result of a 120-year timeline of accidental discovery, survival against racial exclusion, and systematic organizing. In May 1897, a Sikh regiment of the British Army traveled to London for Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee. On their return journey through Vancouver, the soldiers saw a landscape with economic opportunities and personal freedoms they didn't have under colonial rule back home. They brought these stories back to Punjab. Within a few years, Punjabi laborers began arriving on Canada's west coast. They took grueling jobs in lumber mills and on the railways. Because they worked for lower wages than the local labor force, they quickly became the preferred choice for industrial employers. Fearing what local newspapers called a Hindu invasion, the Canadian government implemented targeted restrictions. They imposed a $200 entry fee, nearly 2,000 days' wages for an Indian laborer. They also required immigrants to arrive via a continuous route, which was impossible since no direct ships sailed from India to Canada. These policies reached a climax in 1914 with the Komagata Maru. A ship carrying nearly 400 Indians was denied entry and forced to sit in the Vancouver harbor for 2 months. When they were finally sent back to India, British soldiers opened fire on the passengers, killing dozens. This rejection taught the early diaspora a specific lesson. Economic survival was impossible without legal protection. To secure their place in Canada, they had to organize for actual political leverage. Following World War II, the community successfully lobbied for the right to vote, finally securing it in 1947 by citing their military service to the British Empire. With the ballot secured, the community utilized the Gurdwara as a civic hub. Beyond religious practice, these temples were used to educate the congregation and mobilize them to vote as a single, unified bloc that Canadian politicians could no longer ignore. In the 1960s, the demographic math shifted. Canada's Liberal government began easing immigration restrictions, prioritizing family reunification and skilled labor. This triggered a cycle of chain migration. A single person could establish residency and then strategically sponsor siblings, parents, and cousins. Through legal pathways and arranged marriages, one migrant could eventually facilitate the relocation of an entire village. By the late 1970s, the numbers reflected a new reality. The community had grown from a small group of marginalized laborers into an organized and politically entrenched force across the country. The migration pattern changed again in 1984. Following the Indian Army's operation at the Golden Temple and the subsequent riots in Delhi, a wave of refugees fled Punjab to escape political violence. While the vast majority sought safety and a chance to rebuild, a radicalized minority used the Canadian diaspora as a base for Khalistani extremism. This extremism culminated in the 1985 bombing of Air India Flight 182. Orchestrated by terrorists based in Canada, the attack killed 329 people and remains one of the deadliest acts of aviation terror in history. The violence of the 1980s left deep psychological scars. It created a subset of the diaspora that remains suspicious of the Indian state and protective of their political stronghold in Canada. Diplomatic tensions currently lead the news cycle, but the young people lining up at immigration offices in Punjab are responding to a more immediate pressure, a collapsing local economy. To feed a growing nation, the Indian government implemented the Green Revolution in Punjab, focusing on high-yield wheat and rice. While this initially made the state wealthy, decades of water-intensive farming have depleted the local ecosystem. The data shows the result. Agricultural growth is falling as soil degrades and the water table drops. Meanwhile, state debt is climbing. Because the economy remained centered on agriculture, Punjab lacked the tech jobs seen in other states, leaving the youth with fewer options. To escape this stagnation, Punjabi youth often see a Canadian student visa as their only choice. Families are selling ancestral land and taking on high-interest loans just to cover the cost of international tuition. The century-long migration from Punjab, shaped by imperial history, political trauma, and agricultural decline, has created a diaspora that is now inseparable from the way Canada is governed.